Brazil's presidential election is heading for a second-round runoff after no candidate won 50% of the vote. The socialist former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has 48%. The right-wing incumbent Jair Bolsonaro won 44% of the vote. Well, Lula was tipped to win this first round outright, and when he didn't, he acknowledged he and his supporters have a lot of work to do over the next few weeks until the runoff at the end of October. Our South America correspondent Katie Watson reports from Sao Paulo.
There were cheers for Lula as well as tears, but this wasn't the outright victory that his supporters had hoped for. Polls had predicted a 14 percentage point gap between him and Bolsonaro, but they vastly underestimated the support for the right-wing leader. After the results, Lula said there would be no let-up in campaigning.
I've never won an election in the first round. It's like destiny wants me to work a bit more. We are going to win the election again. It's just a question of time.
Meanwhile, Bolsonaro had this to say.
I know there's a desire to change from people, but there are certain changes that will end up worse. And we tried to show that during the campaign, but clearly that didn't get through to the most important part of society.
These elections were seen as the most important since Brazil returned to democracy in the 1980s. 11 candidates were running, but only 2 were realistic options. A leftist former leader with a legacy of corruption, or a far-right president criticised for his democratic record. The queues on Sunday showed people cared about the outcome. This weekend, Bolsonaro fans paraded their candidate ahead of what they saw as a guaranteed win. They don't believe the polls. They wanted a first-round victory too, and they won't give up their fight.
Why not believe in democracy? It's time to change. Let's change. But let's change peacefully.
There's going to be beautiful blood spilt in this city, this man tells me. I'm prepared to kill all the socialists and communists in the world. After Sunday's results, Lula fans remained upbeat.
I'm not disappointed actually, because I already expected that we wouldn't win in the first turn, but at least we are ahead in the overall results.
Bolsonaro said that polls are a lie. Do you think that he's got a point?
I think he will. I think he will be a bad loser.
So what do you make of the results?
We were expecting to make it on the first turn, but we are very happy that it's a win, and we are really, really happy. And in the second turn, it's going to be Lula, and we can't stand Bolsonaro anymore. Like, I'm an LGBT person, and we want our rights, and we want our people to have our voice in this country.
There's an atmosphere much more of relief than a victory parade. The race for the presidency is far from over. The next few weeks will see intense campaigning, and it's about to become much more personal.
2 political foes now going head-to-head to lead Latin America's biggest nation. There's concern this race could also get violent. Katie Watson, BBC News in Sao Paulo.
Well, with me is Natalia Passarinho from the BBC Brazil service. Thanks for joining us. What are the reasons that people think that Lula did not win outright on this first round?
Well, opinion polls were already showing that if Lula were to win, it would be by a small margin. And so he was within the margin of error that the opinion polls have. But also the turnout has decreased a bit this year compared to 2018. About 20% Brazilians did not go to vote, and most of them are the poor, who have more difficulties going in voting. And Lula is said to be more popular among the poor, so he might have lost some of his votes among his core supporters.
What are the issues that the public are most concerned about? What is sort of driving them to vote one way or the other?
Well, the economics for sure. The state of the economy in Brazil is not very good. For quite a while, inflation was going high, unemployment was high as well. The economic indicators are getting better now, and perhaps that also helps explain a bit of optimism that could have driven votes to Bolsonaro. Health as well. Brazil was very badly hit by the pandemic. About 700,000 people died, and this is the main issue that might have driven votes away from Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was very much criticized by his handling of the pandemic, but the big question now is whether or not Bolsonaro will recognize the results of the election if he loses on the second round. He has been casting doubts on Brazilian electronic voting system, and many people say that a runoff brings more risks, that he will continue to say elections might be rigged. And this time around, Brazilians are not electing senators, governors, about as much as they were on the first round. Only the ones that are going to the second round, the governors that are going to the second round. So people say, analysts say that there's a risk that he might be more successful in driving his voters to question the results if he loses on the second round.
And are his supporters with him on that? I mean, are they also questioning the legitimacy?
Not all of them. Yeah, not all of them, but part of them are helping spread these messages online. The BBC Brazil has reported on thousands of groups on WhatsApp and WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok, spreading messages about the electronic voting system without presenting any evidences that the system could be flawed.
Natalia Pastorinho, thank you very much indeed.